Drawn and Redrawn, The Making of India's Internal Boundaries. Hi, and welcome back to India State Stories. The months between January and May 1947 were marked by growing uncertainty and political brinkmanship. The princes sought guarantees of autonomy, while nationalist leaders dismissed their aspirations. This episode revisits the ambiguous cabinet mission plan, the princes' reluctant negotiations, and the uneasy calm before the storm. More details in the show notes below, and let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine, if you will, a subcontinent poised right on the brink of independence, but also teetering, really, on the edge of just unimaginable fragmentation. We're zooming into these crucial years, 1946 and 1947, a time when the future of hundreds, literally hundreds, of Indian princely states just hung precariously in the balance. So the British were finally packing up, leaving India. But this raised a colossal, potentially catastrophic question. What about the over 500 princely states? I mean, these were huge areas, sometimes semi-autonomous regions, some like Hyderabad were the size of European countries, others just tiny dots on the map, but all under British paramountcy.
Right, paramountcy, that overarching imperial authority. It gave them protection, sure, but it also, limited their actual sovereignty quite a bit.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to unravel the really complex negotiations, the shifting alliances, the stark warnings that ultimately shape their destiny. And we're pulling directly from our stack of sources detailing these pivotal, often nail-biting events. So we start where? May 1946. The cabinet mission plan arrives.
Ah, yes. Britain's big, ambitious plan. Complicated, though. A proposal for united India, but structured with a pretty weak federal center and these controversial provincial groupings.
It was presented more like a recommendation, wasn't it? But it really acted as an award, kind of a take-it-or-leave-it deal for India's future.
That's a good way to put it. And initially, both the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, they actually accepted. Oh, absolutely. They made it explicitly clear that sovereign Pakistan, that remained their ultimate non-negotiable goal. Acceptance was, let's say, tactical at that point.
Okay, but the ink was barely dry on that acceptance before, well, things started falling apart. What happened next really changed the whole political landscape, didn't it?
It really did. A major conflict just erupted over how to interpret the plan, especially those provincial grouping clauses.
How so? What was the disagreement?
Well, the Muslim League saw the groupings as almost mandatory, a direct path to their proposed Pakistan. But Congress insisted provinces had the right to opt out. They feared, a forced consolidation that would undermine their vision of a truly federal India.
So a fundamental disagreement.
Completely. And it led directly to the Muslim League pulling back, revoking its acceptance of the plan.
Wow, okay. Despite that, though, an interim government was formed, September 2nd.
Yes, with Nehru at its head as president. And interestingly, the League representatives, they actually joined this government later, on October 15th. It showed just how fragile, how uneasy that truce was.
And elections for the Constituent Assembly, the body meant to write the Constitution.
Held, yes. But predictably, the elected Muslim Leaguers famously boycotted it. Still, the assembly met anyway. Its first session was December 9th, 1946.
So the assembly starts its work even without the League.
Exactly. And what's truly fascinating here is how quickly that new Constituent Assembly grasped the huge challenge the princely states posed. They knew a united India depended on bringing these diverse entities into the fold somehow.
They had to address it head on.
Right. So, with remarkable foresight, really, they formed a negotiating committee on December 21st, specifically to meet a similar body from the Chamber of Princes.
The Chamber of Princes. That was like your collective voice.
Essentially, yes. The representative body for these hundreds of rulers meant to articulate their interests, mainly to the British originally.
And Nehru had thoughts on negotiating with them?
He did. Ever the Democrat, he publicly said he regretted having to talk to the Rulers Committee. He wanted to deal with representatives of the people from the states.
That's telling.
Very. It wasn't just a casual remark. It was a strong hint about the democratic hopes already bubbling up, even inside these monarchies. It showed the Indian leadership's vision was rooted in the people's will, not just the prince's wishes.
Okay, so 1947 dawns. The princes aren't just sitting back, are they? They're trying to project this united front through the chamber.
They certainly tried. On January 29th, after talking to the political department, that's the British agency handling the states, they passed this pretty assertive resolution.
Assertive how?
It basically declared that joining the future Indian Union could only happen through negotiation, and the final decision was up to each individual state. They insisted on keeping all powers not explicitly given away.
And no interference.
No interference in their internal setups or who inherited the throne. A bold claim to autonomy, really.
But you said they tried to be united, so the ink's barely dry on that resolution.
Exactly. Cracks started showing almost immediately. It's quite striking. The Diwan of Baroda and the Maharaja of Cochin, both pretty significant states.
Yeah.
They just announced they intended to negotiate directly with the Constituent Assembly and join it, completely sidestepping the Chamber's stance.
Wow, okay. A clear act of defiance, pulling at the threads of that unity.
Right.
So this raises an important question. How did these two sides, the sort of resolute princes and the determined Indian leaders, how did they even start talking?
Well, the initial meetings were led by the Nawab of Bhopal for the princes. He was a strong advocate for their autonomy, and key Indian leaders like Nehru and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Patel was already emerging as a key figure here.
Right, the architect of integration later on.
The very same. The Nawab of Bhopal was apparently quite firm. He wanted written assurances about the prince's rights before they'd even consider entering the assembly.
But Nehru's approach.
Strategic and conciliatory, actually. On February 9th, he made this crucial statement. He reiterated Congress's acceptance of the Cabinet Mission Plan.
Despite their earlier issues with it.
Despite those issues, yes. He assured the princes Congress wouldn't mess with their internal monarchical systems, and he stressed again that joining the assembly was entirely voluntary.
So, trying to build some trust.
Precisely. And it worked, to an extent. It significantly softened the atmosphere. And crucially, it led to an agreement on how seats for the princely states would be distributed within the Constituent Assembly.
A vital first step, then, getting them notionally inside the tent.
A very vital first step towards potential integration.
But this cautious progress, this sort of fragile bridge, he was about to get rocked, wasn't it? An announcement from London really cranked up the pressure.
Oh, massively. February 20th, 1947. Prime Minister Clement Attlee stands up in the British Parliament, makes this monumental declaration.
What was it?
British rule in India would end no later than June 1948, a hard deadline, and Lord Mountbatten would replace Wavell as the last viceroy.
Okay, a deadline, that certainly changes things, transforms leisurely talks into a race against the clock.
Absolutely. But here's the absolute bombshell in Attlee's statement, the part that really reshaped everything for the princely states.
Go on.
His Majesty's government explicitly stated they did not intend to transfer paramountcy, that overarching British authority and protection, to any successor government in India.
Wait, so Britain was just dropping it, letting it lapse.
Exactly. For the interim, relations would be governed by individual agreements. But essentially, paramountcy would vanish with British rule.
So what did that mean for the princes? Legally? Practically?
It meant almost overnight they were left legally sovereign, perhaps, but practically naked. Stripped of their main protector, facing an uncertain future completely alone.
Wow, okay. That connects the dots.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this declaration just radically shifted the whole pace and dynamic. Nehru saw it instantly.
He saw the vacuum.
The vacuum, the deadline. He immediately started emphasizing a new sense of urgency. States had to join the Constituent Assembly. It wasn't just politics anymore. It was about preventing chaos.
And this announcement must have amplified the splits among the rulers themselves.
Dramatically. You see figures like the Maharaja of Bikaner, Sir Sadul Singh, quite farsighted, actually. He publicly rejected the Chancellor of the Chamber's wait-and-see policy.
What did he argue?
He gave the stark warning. Boycotting the assembly, he said, would make the states look like they were siding with divisive, anti-national elements. It would jeopardize their own future. He really stressed the need for a strong central government for stability.
Smart.
And the ruler of Patiala, a powerful Sikh state, echoed him. So that united front was seriously fracturing now.
Right. So this internal pressure leads to?
It leads to a kind of compromise resolution within the Chamber of Princes on April 2nd. They expressed willingness to cooperate, but still insisted the Constituent Assembly formally ratify any agreement with them.
A face-saving move for some?
Largely, yes. Nehru saw ratification as unnecessary. He viewed the Assembly as already sovereign. And crucially, Patiala openly backed Nehru's stance and urged others to join without delay.
So that was the breaking point for unity.
That was the definitive break.
And this moment, really, it marks the beginning of the end for that united front they tried so hard to keep up.
It really does.
Because then, April 28th, 1947, What happens?
Representatives from Baroda, Bikaner, Cochin, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Patiala, and Rewa, major states, they actually took their seats in the Constituent Assembly.
Not just symbolic then, a real shift.
A clear, undeniable signal. The chamber's consensus was shattered. With these big players breaking ranks, the momentum for integration just gained this significant, irreversible speed.
But as some joined, others were thinking differently, weren't they? With paramountcy lapsing, some states started seriously considering full independence.
They did, and that's when tensions escalated dramatically across the whole subcontinent.
Nehru's reaction.
Firm, absolutely firm. June 13th, at a key Congress meeting, he completely rejected the idea that any state could just declare itself independent. His argument: the Cabinet Mission Plan, even with its issues, didn't allow for it. It envisioned a united India.
He saw it as a direct threat.
A direct threat to the nation's integrity, yes.
But not everyone agreed with that interpretation, did they?
No. And here's where it gets truly fascinating, the immediate, stark contrast. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, leader of the Muslim League, he vehemently disagreed with Nehru. He asserted that with paramountcy gone, each princely state was now completely sovereign. They had the full right to stay independent or join India or join Pakistan, their choice.
A direct ideological clash.
Right.
Two totally different maps of the future subcontinent.
Exactly. And meanwhile, adding to the tension, Congress was getting really concerned about the British political department.
Why? What were they worried about?
They suspected the department was destroying crucial records, dismantling the official residencies, basically erasing the administrative history.
Why would they do that?
Well, Congress feared it was a deliberate attempt to sow chaos, to make it harder for the successor governments, India and Pakistan, to understand past agreements and manage the transition smoothly, leaving a muddled legacy.
Amidst all this, Mountbatten steps in.
He tries to manage it. He proposes creating a new States Department with both Indian and Pakistani sections, an attempt to provide some structure for handling all these complex issues.
But the alarms were already ringing, weren't they? The actual declarations of independence.
They came swiftly, confirming everyone's worst fears about fragmentation. June 11th, Travancore, ancient, wealthy state in the south, declares it intends to be an independent sovereign state.
And then Hyderabad.
Right on its heels. June 12th, Hyderabad, one of the largest, most powerful states, makes a similar declaration. These weren't minor players. This sent shockwaves.
I can imagine. Widespread alarm must have followed.
Across the entire subcontinent, the prospect of these big, powerful states just opting out, it was a nightmare scenario for Indian unity.
So Congress responds.
Forcefully. June 14th, the All India Congress Committee passes this strongly worded resolution, unequivocally rejects the idea that paramountcy lapsing gave states the right to secede. They insisted existing obligations remained valid. Continuity.
But Jinnah pushes back again.
Just as strongly. June 18th. He counters, affirms that states would become fully sovereign, free to choose, including total independence. The lines were drawn very clearly.
Where did Mountbatten stand on this independence idea?
He was quite clear, actually, at a press conference. His Majesty's government would not grant dominion status, essentially, international recognition within the Commonwealth, to any state claiming independence.
A subtle but firm denial of legitimacy.
Exactly. And some rulers were exploring other options, too, like regional federations, a kind of third force.
How did Gandhi and Nehru view that?
Staunchly opposed. They saw it not as genuine autonomy, but as cynical attempts, maybe even encouraged by the political department, to block democratic reforms within the states and maybe keep some British influence alive.
It's interesting. And Menon, Patel's key aide, he summed up the fear.
He captured it perfectly. He said, the prospect of states returning to complete political isolation posed the gravest threat to India's integrity. That was the visceral fear.
Balkanization.
Balkanization, like the Balkans after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. Precisely. A subcontinent not just split in two, but potentially shattering into dozens, hundreds of sovereign monarchies. Imagine the chaos. Tiny states, competing armies, currencies, customs borders, a future of conflict, economic collapse. It was this nightmare that drove the urgency from the Indian leadership.
So facing this terrifying potential fragmentation, Congress leaders, especially Patel and Nehru, they adopt this really firm policy against independence.
Incredibly firm, resolute. Nehru didn't mince words. He warned that any state refusing to join the Constituent Assembly would be seen as hostile. It wasn't just politics. It felt like national survival.
Right. So what did this all mean for the princes, on the ground? Mountbatten addressed them directly.
He did. July 25th, 1947. A very pragmatic, realistic speech to the Chamber of Princes. He laid out the hard facts.
Which were?
Most states were geographically linked to either India or Pakistan. A truly independent existence, isolated from these massive neighbors, was just impractical, economically unviable. He basically urged them to accede to one dominion or the other.
Laying out the unavoidable reality.
Exactly. And by early June 47, you have to remember, the princes were in this incredibly vulnerable spot. Legally, maybe independent, sure, but practically. No British protection. Their ultimate shield was gone. And immense pressure from Indian leaders.
And pressure from within their own states, too.
Crucially, yes, their own people were increasingly demanding democratic government and end to feudal rule. This seriously eroded the princes' popular support, their internal legitimacy.
So external pressure, internal weakness.
A combination that made their position basically untenable. They'd lost their protector and their base was crumbling.
And so the integration process speeds up dramatically, driven by events.
Driven by an undeniable immediate need. The terrifying communal violence that just exploded after partition, the massive, unprecedented refugee crisis. It created this overwhelming demand for stability, for unity.
People needed order.
Desperately. An urgent need for order. For a unified response to a humanitarian catastrophe. For a stable central authority to manage the fallout. That, more than anything perhaps, became the ultimate driving force behind the final, very rapid integration process. The new nation's survival depended on it.
Reflecting on all this, it's just a monumental challenge they faced. This deep dive really shows not just the complex politics and clashing ideas, but the sheer urgency, the clashing visions for India's future.
It truly was a race against time. The entire shape of the subcontinent, millions of lives, just hanging in the balance.
So what does this all mean for us today, looking back? I mean, the period leading up to India's independence, it wasn't just about the British leaving, was it?
Not at all. It was about navigating this absolute labyrinth of history, of old allegiances, competing claims to sovereignty, and this powerful, irresistible tide of popular feeling for self-rule.
And for you, our curious listener, maybe consider this. These moments of profound political transition, where old power structures just dissolve, they create not just immense risk, right? Risk of fragmentation.
Huge risk, yes.
But also, maybe, unprecedented opportunities for new kinds of unity, new forms of national identity being forged.
Absolutely. It's that tension, risk, and opportunity that echoes through history, doesn't it? It reminds us that making a nation is often dynamic, incredibly perilous, but also an utterly compelling story.